Hey there, Internet friends, and welcome to the final episode of Season 2 of That Ultimate Video Game List Show. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey from ThatNerdySite.com, and this is the show where each season me and a panel of friends try to create the ultimate top 20 video game list with two main bits of criteria. Only one game per franchise, and only one game per console. Joining me here on Season 2, we have had Scott White from Irrational Passions and DualShockers. How you doing, Scott?
Doing well, staying healthy. That's my goal.
That is the best anybody can ask for right now. We've got podcast aficionado Brandon Gann. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing all right. I just recently got Doom Eternal as of a couple days ago from recording, so I've been playing all of that yesterday. Doom's good. Doom,
very fun. We've got Jonathan Zyger Landeros from My Xbox and Me. How you doing, Zyger?
I'm doing great. Just trying to survive in Seattle while playing Animal Crossing. Great game.
Yep.
Loving it.
And we've got Aaron Mahler from the Scootcast. How you doing, Aaron?
Oh, I am just surviving. I just woke up like 10 minutes ago.
Nice.
It's great. It's
awesome.
Great.
Good way to go. If you like what you hear, please remember you can rate, review, like, subscribe everywhere you can. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always support That Nerdy Site over on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. If you're brand new to the show, we're jumping in point here at the end of Season 2, but the way the show works is like this. For the first 5 or 6 weeks, the team kind of got together and took turns, game by game, adding new games onto the list. Only one game per franchise and only one game per console, as I said earlier. Once we got 20 games on the list, we have spent the last few weeks ranking those games, and we are here to the final ranking episode, ranking games number 5 through 1. So just to bring everybody up to speed, the list as follows looks like this. Number 20, Resistance Burning Skies for the PlayStation Vita. Number 19, Bubble Bobble for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Number 18, Mischief Makers for the N64. Number 17, Metal Gear Ghost Babel for the Game Boy Color. Number 16, Grand Theft Auto 5 for the Xbox 360. Number 15, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, PlayStation 4. Number 14, Animal Crossing New Leaf for the 3DS. Number 13, Minecraft for mobile devices. Number 12, Stardew Valley for the Tesla Arcade. Number 11, Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U, on the Wii U, of course. Number 11, Kirby Air Ride for the Nintendo GameCube. Number 9, Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii. Number 8, Halo Reach for the Xbox One. Number 7, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic for the Xbox. And number 6, Diablo 2 for the PC. Leaving the games for this final episode as follows. Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1, Persona 5 for the PlayStation 3, Kingdom Hearts for the PlayStation 2, the original Kingdom Hearts, Pokemon Heart Gold for the Nintendo DS, and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the Dark Horse, making it all the way here into the top 5 for the Nintendo Switch. So Xenobros life.
Xenobros for life.
Okay, so real quick.
I throw it to the panel. Where are we starting with number 5? Zyger, real quick, go ahead.
I don't mean to correct you, but you said number 11, Kirby Air Ride. You also said 11 for Smash. Kirby Air Ride is 10.
Sorry.
I just want to give Kirby Air Ride the honor it deserves.
Sorry.
Normally I wouldn't correct you, but it's Kirby Air Ride. I have to.
No, that's fair. I misread. My apologies. Yes, Kirby Air Ride is at number 10, making it into the top 10 games of all time. Kirby
as
Air
it deserves.
Fair enough. So who wants to start? Who wants to start the conversation here at number 5? We had
Kingdom Hearts.
The case for Kingdom Hearts and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was were the the top contenders last week.
Yeah, I think I'd made that relinquishment.
Yeah, absolutely. Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts at number 5. Is that where everybody's feeling?
Not me personally, because as I've said for the last couple of weeks, I had Persona 5 underneath Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but after, I can't remember when it was, either our last adding episode or our first ranking episode, can't remember which, when I started seeing where everybody's Persona 5 was on their list, I'm like, I'm not touching that until the top 5 episode at the absolute earliest, and so that's why Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is literally one spot above that. And so that's where most of our conversation was last week. It was a 2-2 split for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Kingdom Hearts being the lowest ranked list, and then somehow we put 4 games underneath those two. So that's kind of where we're sitting right now.
Last week was shenanigans.
Yeah, I was listening back to the episode as I was editing it, and like even Aaron was like, "Yeah, I don't expect Xenoblade Chronicles to like make it past 9 or whatever." And then all of the Xenobros stuff happened, and the game just kept crawling up the list.
That's just stereotypical RPG goodness, though. You know, you're counting. They're the underdogs. You're counting them out. There's a bunch of big bosses in front of you. They just keep pushing and pushing with the power of friendship and love and generic magical MacGuffin items, and then boom, you're at the final boss. You're in the final dungeon. Where Xeno is in the final dungeon right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the top 7 games on this list are all RPGs, right? Diablo 2 and KOTOR are RPGs, right?
Yeah, they're both
Yeah,
action
yeah.
RPGs.
Got it. Top 7 games are RPGs. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
So Xenoblade and Kingdom Hearts is basically where we're sitting still.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of made the concession last week that I would allow, in quotation marks, like I'm allowing anything to happen on this godforsaken podcast.
You allowed it into the top 5. What are you talking about?
Kingdom Hearts would be 5 and Xenoblade would be 4.
Okay. Is that where you're feeling, Scott?
Yep.
And Zyger?
Yeah, as much as I want to do Xenoblade Chronicles 2 just to spite Aaron, I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is much better than Kingdom Hearts 1. No hate against Kingdom Hearts 1, but it just does not hold up.
Okay. And then, Brandon, you would have those reversed?
Yeah, and to Zyger's point, we're in the top 5. There cannot be any hate at this point. Like, these are all phenomenal, no matter how they get ranked.
All right, so is everybody cool if we do a double lock-in then of Kingdom Hearts at 5 and Xenoblade Chronicles at 4, and then continue on to the top 3? Everybody
Because I'm outvoted 3-1. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me get that in. Kingdom Hearts locked in at 5. Doom doom doom.
Yes.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 locked in at 4. Doom doom doom.
Yes.
And then we are down to our final 3.
This is where it's going to get hard.
We're down to our final 3. So yeah, we've got Final Fantasy VII, which as of recording, Scott has done a giant conversation of already today. We've got Persona 5 and we've got Pokemon Heart Gold. So
now I may be biased because 2 of these are my games.
Yes.
But any of these could be in any order, and I'd probably be happy with it. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like.
But we've got to come up with an order.
But for number 3, I would put Pokemon Heart Gold.
Anybody else have any suggestions?
I will put Heart Gold at 3 as well. It would have been higher if it was Soul Silver, but Heart Gold.
Yeah, I feel that.
That does no. It does. We don't have to be.
I was being sarcastic. I'm sorry. Okay. No,
I was not.
I think Heart Gold should be 3.
I absolutely can't, in good conscience, put Pokemon Heart Gold above Final Fantasy VII or Persona 5. Like, I can't do that.
See, I would put
as much as I adore.
7.
I only adore Heart Gold. Okay, Zygo, we don't have to be,
See, Final Fantasy VII is a great game. One of the greatest games of all time. I'm sure everyone is well aware of this. However, Pokemon Heart Gold was a revolution for the Pokemon franchise. Well, some people can argue Final Fantasy VII was also a revolution for its franchise since it was the first one that did 3D, right? I'm not wrong there?
It made RPGs mainstream. I mean, if you really look back, it was the first probably big actual RPG that went mainstream.
But of the 2 games, I feel like Pokemon Heart Gold probably holds up better. Like, I haven't gone back to Final Fantasy VII, and again, I've never finished it. I've only played up to Disc 1, where, spoilers, the big thing happens, right? That was the end of Disc 1?
The big thing
pretty
happens.
much, yes.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of stuff afterwards, but yes, the big thing happens near the end of Disc 1.
Yeah, so I've only played up to Disc 1, so I don't know the rest of Final Fantasy VII. That's personally why I have it lower than Pokemon or Persona. But I feel like Pokemon Heart Gold probably holds up better. Like, if anyone today were to go in and play either Final Fantasy VII or Pokemon Heart Gold, I feel more people would enjoy Heart Gold than Final Fantasy VII. More people are probably waiting for the remake of Final Fantasy VII to get into that story, which I think is a great story, and I think everyone should experience at one point in their life. but I feel like the HD remake of it is a better introduction to that story than the original Final Fantasy VII.
Okay. We got Zyger in the camp of Final Fantasy VII here at number 3. Real quick, because I forgot to do it, since we double locked in the last couple games, Aaron or Brandon, any final thoughts on Kingdom Hearts before we dive back into this conversation? And then Aaron, I'll throw to you for Xenoblade Chronicles.
Say what you will to all people out there about Kingdom Hearts as a whole, not just the single game here, but the entire franchise and how it kind of gets away from itself. Like, the underlying fact about why Kingdom Hearts has had such life and why it is so popular is this very game. This is the game that, as Zyger has pointed out a couple times in past episodes, and in the comparison Scott brought up between a singular package between it and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the original Kingdom Hearts, at its heart, at its very core, is something that is still a phenomenal game in regards to really introducing a union, the likes of which I don't think we have seen in quite that way between Final Fantasy and Disney in terms of properties, in terms of
Would
games.
you call it a union cross? Sorry. I just wanted to make
God.
the joke. I'm sorry. I just needed to make the mobile joke. I'm sorry. It's all right.
I was expecting Scott to make the pun, but okay. But that, again, the original Kingdom Hearts is such a, personally speaking, and this is where, since we've locked it in, I can't really argue it any further, but on just a personal note, it is such a foundational pillar of my identity for the games that I like, for the games that I'm interested in. I have like a little note here I've written up about it as to why I have it ranked where I have it, and a little bullet point I have is that Kingdom Hearts, the original game, taught me, or didn't really teach me, quote unquote, but best showed a lesson that I learned is that in like the hardest situations that sometimes friendship can be enough. Like I have encountered that in recent years where I've had to rely on friends to get me through a dark period, one point or another, for one reason or another. And that Kingdom Hearts was a game that showed me that was okay, that was something that is enough, that can give you the power to get through it. So to Kingdom Hearts at this episode of the season, I bid you a fond farewell in the ranking process. You've served me well throughout the years. And so to everyone out there who is ever interested in Kingdom Hearts as a franchise, play the original game, see if you like it, and if you don't, that's fine. But it is a game that's very important to me, and I really wish a lot more people would experience it without all the negative stuff associated with it. So,
Indeed, let your heart be your guiding key.
Oh, you took it. I had it all set up, man.
It's awesome.
It's my show, Scott.
I know it's a good show.
And then Aaron, any final thoughts to share with Xenoblade Chronicles 2?
Oh, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, how you've stolen my heart. It's just like so good. And it's so good, and it's like beautiful, and its combat's fun and interesting, and its story is just super campy, and I love it. And there's I think the whole like system of like blades and drivers is really cool. It's just great. It's just awesome. Play Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
There you go. All right. So back to the third place, our bronze game. It sounds like, from my read of the room, that Zyger, I think, is probably the only one that would put Final Fantasy VII here. Everybody else was on the Pokemon Heart Gold camp. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case.
yeah, personally speaking, I would have Persona, but again, this is number 2, number 3, and eventually number 1. I knew it was going to be coming down to the 2 remaining games that are left, so I also nominate Pokemon to be number 3.
Yeah. So you had Persona higher on the list, or lower, higher number wise than Pokemon.
As in, on my rankings, Persona 5 is like well down there. And as comparison, Persona 5 was number 14. Pokemon was number 8. As a reminder, with the games I didn't play, Pokemon of all that list was the highest ranked, the easiest to convince me to play. But as we're sitting here with these last final 3 games, it's my favorite game of all time and 2 games I haven't played. So you can pretty much sure how fluid I am with those other 2 games and championing my own game. So that's why I'm nominating Pokemon.
I thought for some reason that you had played Persona 5, so
Oh no,
I would I would have expected the PlayStation game to be higher on the list than the Nintendo game for you, but that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, if it's 3-1 then on Pokemon Heart Gold, I will go ahead and lock that one in at 3. Dum dum dum. And we come down to our final two. But first, Aaron, and then Zyger, as you were the kind of remaining champion for it, I'll give you a chance to shout out some final Pokemon Heart Gold love. But Aaron, it was your pick, your round 3 pick. Go ahead and give us some parting words for Pokemon Heart Gold.
Just has a lot of nostalgia for me because this was the first Pokemon game that I got into really hard. Like, I'd played Gen 3, and then I'd played the Gen 4, like, Sinnoh games, but Pokemon Heart Gold was really when I fell in love with Pokemon, and I think it was, like, the point in which a lot of people regard this as, like, the ultimate Pokemon game, just because there's so much in it, and it's, your Pokemon can walk around with you, in both the game and in real life with the Pokewalker. I think we haven't talked about that thing this entire time, which is like my favorite thing, is that tiny pedometer you got with the game that you can put your Pokemon in. I loved that thing. And no, I think it's just the ultimate show of what Pokemon can be. And it's this very, very large RPG inside your tiny, tiny handheld.
Cool. And Scott, I guess I'll throw it to you since, or real quick, and then we'll come back to Zyger on this one. But Scott, as Professor RPG, do you have any parting words for any of the games that have already been cut at this point?
In terms of Kingdom Hearts, I think I said a lot of it last time. And I do mirror a lot of what Brandon said. This game, I don't think the first Kingdom Hearts is a good game. I don't think it deserves a lot of the crap that people have given it since the more recent games have come out, but it's, especially with it coming to Xbox and things like that, definitely give it a playthrough. It's great to see where everything started, and it's an interesting look at how the series evolved to get that perspective. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I absolutely fell in love with when I beat it for the first time about a month and a half now. It's the characters in it are so rich and fleshed out and interesting, and how it interestingly connects to Xenoblade Chronicles 1. I can't wait to see how the epilogue kind of maybe addresses some of those things in the definitive edition in May. It really blew me away, and for RPG that, at least for me, took over 100 hours to beat, just because I did a lot of stuff. I craft, well, no, I didn't craft, there's no crafting, but I did a lot of stuff in it. For a RPG to hold me that long really says something about the quality. And with Pokemon Heart Gold, Soul Silver, this is my favorite Pokemon game that has ever released. These games, from being able to go back to Kanto in addition to exploring all of Johto, the 2 regions, to having your Pokemon walk around with you. I thought the graphics were great. This is the pinnacle of Pokemon for me, was Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and I would have easily been happy having this on any spot in this top 3 if it landed there, and been perfectly fine with it. So,
all right, and then Zyger, final parting words as the remaining champion of Pokemon Heart Gold here. You definitely already kind of sang its praises a little bit there, but any last things to add?
I definitely want to echo everything both Brandon and Aaron have said, or not Brandon, Scott and Aaron have said. Sorry, Brandon. But
it's okay.
Pokemon Heart Gold, great game. I prefer Soul Silver, but that's my own little thing. My favorite thing about Heart Gold is the revisiting of Kanto, because like in the original game, it's still an epic moment, but going back in this remake just really changes everything. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but in the original Silver and Gold, when you battle Red had the record for the strongest Pokemon you can encounter in the game up until Gen 4, because Red's Pikachu was level 81, but in Gen 4 in Platinum, your rival, Berry or Pearl, whatever you want to call him, his starter Pokemon becomes 85, In the remake, the Game Freak decided to give Red the record back and give his Pikachu a level up boost, and now the Pikachu is level 88. So Red has the record for the strongest Pokemon in the franchise that you can encounter in a battle, besides a wild Magikarp, but that's different. Pokemon Heart Gold, great game. I love basically everything about it. I really wish they took elements from Heart Gold and put it back into Pokemon, like Pokemon following you was a great mechanic that we saw in Let's Go, but should still return. I really enjoyed crafting the different Pokeballs that you can do. I know some people did not like that. It's a weird little aspect of the game, but I really enjoyed it. But yeah, Pokemon Heart Gold, probably the greatest Pokemon game, since I would say Sword and Shield probably on the same wavelength, but yeah, Pokemon Heart Gold, great game, top 3.
Cool, very cool. So we are down to the final 2, and it is a Battle of Titans, which is interesting because as I've been looking at this list, I've been thinking, especially as we started narrowing down this way, it looked like it was going to come down to Final Fantasy versus Persona. And I remember when I was growing up, the Battle of the Titans would have been Final Fantasy versus Dragon Quest, but I definitely think in recent years, most likely starting with Persona 4 Golden, Persona seems to have kind of taken Dragon Quest's kind of place at the top tier of JRPGs at this point. So it seems fitting that the very RPG heavy crowd that we have here comes down to Final Fantasy VII versus the latest Persona, Persona 5. So it's a bloodbath one way or the other, I'm sure. But I throw it to you guys. Who's feeling what?
Final Fantasy VII should be number 2. Persona 5 is so good, guys.
I hate to agree with Zyger, but it's happening.
What have I done to you recently?
You've been the antagonist of this entire podcast, Zyger.
That's a lie.
No,
Sorry,
that's fact.
You've been the antagonist since we started ranking. No, one episode before when you did your whole mind game thing.
Thank you.
Look.
And you set yourself up as the villain for the rest of this to go down.
Did I, though?
Yes.
Yes,
I
you
was
did.
just playing the game.
Well,
You are the Richard Hatch of this for a Survivor Series 1 reference.
Wow.
Most people from the outside, yeah, you kind of were a dick, but you are playing the game in a way that it could be played. Scott, how about you? Where you falling on this? Because I know Brandon's going to be championing Final Fantasy VII.
You can end the episode or you can prolong it. That's pretty much the decision you've got.
So,
I can't even rely on, but there's a better version of it coming out just because they both have new versions coming out.
yeah.
Yeah.
really soon, too.
Yeah. Really?
Persona's
A
what,
week
Friday?
apart. Persona is
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday? When's Final Fantasy? Is it the Tuesday
A
after?
week from Friday.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, both super soon.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not on this season.
Okay, so wait. I want to hear from Brandon. What do you want to say about Final Fantasy VII that you think should be higher on the list than Persona 5?
I've actually been thinking about that since everybody was giving their eulogies for Pokemon, and for me, it's like extremely difficult because if I had played Persona 5, I would know better comparisons. Like, if, for example, if I say something like Final Fantasy VII did X better than Persona, it's very easily to counter, well, Persona did X and did it better, or did it in this way. And without having any of that knowledge about Persona 5, I can't really make comparisons. I can sit here for hours and I can extol the virtues about 7 and all the things that are great about it, but without that knowledge of things that Persona 5 does, I can't really say if it's better or worse than Persona 5. So that's very difficult for me. The only thing I think that I do have available to me that's easy, that's common knowledge, that is something that's comparable between the two is game length. And that is something that is subjective to the person about whether or not someone is completely fine going triple-digit hours, or if someone like me, for example, again, only being able to speak for myself, when someone says it takes triple-digit hours to complete Persona, that's not really a sticking point for me. Like, yes, I'm okay with fine, very long games, but after a while, there is such a thing as dragging on and on and on, whereas in Final Fantasy VII, you can not only just finish that thing, but you can completely 100% break the thing long before you even finish a Persona 5 playthrough. And that's that is the only variable that I can think of that I know of Persona 5 that I can do any comparisons. Again, I can talk about battle systems about 7, but I don't know anything about how Persona 5 battle systems work. I can sit here and talk about characters, and I know Persona 5 is a very, very fantastic franchise in developing and cultivating and maintaining relationships, both platonically and romantically, for characters and the cast of that series. But I don't know the inner workings of that. I can only go off of my 7 knowledge. So to sit here and say anything about 7, I can, again, go on and on and on and on and on about how, this thing about 7 is great, and that thing, and all this, that, and the other. But again, it's an extremely hard comparison for me, especially since I'm speaking with an entire cast here who has gone through both of these games in all of their entirety. So, again, if you have any questions specifically about 7, about my personal opinion about them, I'll be more than happy to go over that specifically. But in terms of asking me for doing a comparison, I just can't, because I don't have that knowledge.
So I would say, Brandon, then don't try and compare the two, since obviously, you can't compare to a game you haven't played, but pick an element of Final Fantasy VII that you think Final Fantasy VII really excels at, and kind of detail why you think it excels at that. And it's not putting it against, it's just saying Final Fantasy VII does this thing so well that I think it should be the game number 1.
Okay, so probably I'll just have to rely on the other things I think it does well, the thing I think it does the absolute best, the thing I resonate the most with. And that is, of course, the story. And granted, with Remake coming out, we're only getting a part of that, and everybody's all mad about that and whatever. But from beginning to end, from when you come out of space, for all intents and purposes, and get that shot of Aerith's face, all the way until end of game, regular game spoilers, when you're on the high wind and you see Holy coming to prevent Meteor, like from beginning to end, every single beat, including the optional beats that you can completely bypass entirely, like Wutai, for example. It's all interconnected, and it's all a believable world where it's constantly reiterating on its themes about, as I said, all the way back in episode 1 of the season, how it's a commentary about corporate greed, and how it's an environmental commentary about how it is discovering something that is bigger than yourself and fighting for yourself. And as I just touched on earlier in this very episode about Kingdom Hearts, is that you can find and rely on friendships, and that friendship can really take you to places that you'd never thought you would have gone to. 7 introduces its story in such a way where it can be taken at your own pace, and what I mean by that is, for example, when you're going through Midgar, and this could be applicable to Remake as well, when you're going through Midgar, and if people are not paying attention, you can just fly through it, hit the major story beats, get out of Shinra Tower, get out of Midgar, and the game is done. But taking the time to really invest, for example, in Aerith's home, seeing her home life, and walking through the slums with her, going through the entire Wall Market section, which I'm very curious to see how Remake is going to do, but going through that entire, mostly a good portion of Midgar is that side quest of going through Wall Market because you need to get into Don Corneo's mansion. That is a game where its story is sitting here and saying, okay, you are this ex-soldier, this mercenary, who is having to fight against this massive, overbearing conglomerate, this huge corporation that's pretty much ruling the world. And what are you going to do about it? How are you going to overcome this? What can you do to make a difference, to make your mark, to make an impact in the world, to make the world a better place? And I think that 7 is a game that says that particular brand of commentary more so than any other game out there, because basically it is just kind of a meta cautionary tale of, this is the way, granted this is on a fantastical fictional place, but this is an outcome that is likely, that this is something that shows that if you know, if you can do something, if you have the power to stand up, to get into the face of somebody who is, for lack of a better word, taking advantage of the entire situation. In this game's case, the planet, and subsequently the people. But if you can stand up, if you can be the resistance, as Avalanche is, if you can be something and someone to be a symbol, to be that hope that can inspire people, then that's just something that just really impacted me. Something I think that 7 does a lot better than pretty much any other game out there.
Okay, great. Aaron, I will kind of
Yes.
throw to you. You have the benefit of having played both games, I believe. So
I have, yes.
So rather than right now for a comparison against the two, I would kind of ask you the same kind of thing of pick something that Persona 5 does in your opinion that like means that it should be the number one game, and kind of detail that.
This is a staple of the Persona series, but I think Persona 5 does it the best. Is the like half dungeon crawler, normal JRPG thing, but you are restricted to a clock, basically. I think the managing what you want to do and how you want to do it and in what order and what kind of priorities you're going to make about whether you want to spend time with your friends, stock up, or do the dungeon in these like chunks based on the calendar system, I think is super I think it's super fun. I think it's super interesting. I think it's very unique, and it's the part of the game that I enjoy the most, is dealing with how I'm going to deal with these time restrictions. Not even on the global scale of like I have a month to do this dungeon, but even just the day to day, like do I want to do the dungeon for this day, or do I want to hang out with my friends to hopefully build up their my relationship with them so that they'll be better in the dungeon when I go back in, and do I want to prep for the first half of the month and then do the dungeon for the latter, or do the opposite? And that coupled with the like amazing story and amazing cast of characters, because I think none of that works if your characters are boring. You're not going to want to spend any time with them if you don't like them, and that's half the game. So I think that's really a testament to how much everybody loves the characters in Persona 5. And yeah, I think it's just that kind of it's greater than the sum of its parts. Everything in that game is so masterfully put together, and the style is amazing, and the music is fantastic. There's just, it all culminates into a game that does take 100+ hours to beat, but those 100 hours, in my opinion, flew by. It was
all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Scott, have I given you enough time to kind of weigh the options and land on a which side of the barrier you fall on this one?
Yes. Giving it a lot of thought, I think primarily my choice comes down to two main things: options within the game, and then replaying it. I think for this, even though on my personal list I had Persona 5 lower at number 3 with Final Fantasy 7 at number 1. But having just come off talking a lot about Final Fantasy 7 and talking to people about Persona 5 recently, it's Final Fantasy 7 is excuse me. I want to view this as its own game and not through nostalgia glasses. And as solid products, Final Fantasy 7 still holds up today. It's still a fantastic game. I love the characters, I love the world, I love the story, everything. But one of the points actually Jarrett Green over at IP brought up was each character, with the exception of a couple base stats being slightly different, you can make each character feels the exact same. Whereas with Persona 5, there's so many options available to you as a player to choose how you want to play. whether from how you want to raise your persona or fuse personas and everything like that, it gives players have so much more option and freedom of choice in Persona than they do in Final Fantasy VII. And just it's not even because Persona 5 came out later than Final Fantasy VII, because games like Final Fantasy V had the incredible job system. Other Final Fantasies showed that Final Fantasy games previous to 7 allowed players a lot of flexibility in how they wanted to build out their team, how they wanted to play the game, etc. Whereas 7 was, these are your characters, they're all pretty much the same. You can make them how you want with the materia, but even still you can make everyone the exact same. Whereas with Persona, you have a lot more variety, and that variety and choice lends itself to multiple playthroughs. You can go through multiple times. There is so much in terms of the confidants and being able to dive as much or as little into the worlds and these characters as you want can dramatically influence your playtime. So you could easily beat Persona 5 in not triple-digit hours, but you would also be sacrificing a lot of the deep connections and exploring these characters, which I think are fantastic. So weighing everything and trying to take off the rose-tinted goggles of nostalgia with 7, I'm going to have to put Final Fantasy 7 at 2.
All right. Well, I'm actually very relieved of that, weirdly, because I did not want to have to be the tiebreaker on the top 2 games. I think it's a much better scenario if you guys kind of land on the list together. But yeah, so that puts 3 in favor of Final Fantasy VII here at number 2. And admittedly, had it fallen to me, it would have been really tough because personally I like Final Fantasy VII more of these 2 games. And I can't necessarily separate it from the nostalgia goggles that I view that game with. It's not my favorite Final Fantasy, versus like Persona 5 is my favorite Persona. I've said that in the past, that I think I loved what, admittedly I've only done that and Persona 4 Golden, but I love what Persona 4 Golden sets up, but I think Persona 5 does it better, takes kind of the lessons learned from Persona 4, and improves upon them. That said, I think like my biggest thing between the 2 games would be, I think there is, at least in how I play Persona, there's a significant lull there near the end of the game, where I think, in particular, one of my big criticisms on Persona has been that I think like it has one dungeon and one kind of party member too many, which makes me even more curious about Persona 5 Royal, where they're adding yet another character into the mix. But like I feel like by the time Haru kind of joins your crew, I'm like, I'm already so invested in like the rest of these people that you're just kind of one more story coming in. I don't have time for you. So that was like my experience with Persona 5. Versus, I was still very much invested in the optional characters like Vincent and Yuffie in Persona 7, or in
Persona 7.
In
Wow.
Final Fantasy
I like
7.
that crossover.
The epic crossover Persona 7 remake. But yeah, so I personally lean more into to Brandon's camp in these 2 games, but both of them are fantastic. One is very much like this, it was the pinnacle of its era, and now we have kind of the Persona 5 being the pinnacle of this era of JRPGs, I think. So it's absolutely fitting that these 2 kind of take the top 2 spots for this panel, but it does sound like the panel here is aligning behind Final Fantasy VII here at number 2. So Brandon, before I lock that in, any parting words for your favorite game of all time here, Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah, and before going off on the overall thing, the point about the characters being the exact same, while that is an inarguable fact, it's beyond my mental comprehension to see that as a negative, and it's not 100% accurate, even though it is 95% accurate. For example, you can't make Aerith a physical fighter, but you can certainly rely on everyone else to use the same magic or summons or however you want to build the character. So I just wanted to point out there that that malleability, I will never understand how that could be construed as a negative in any capacity. But anyway, to the point of 7 as a whole, closing remarks about it, I've been waiting a long time for April 10th, let me tell you. I actually did not play Final Fantasy VII when it first came out. It was a decade after that when I had a friend of mine introduce me to that game, and I was so captivated with what I saw that I got it and played it from the beginning because he showed me a little snippet in the middle for anybody out there that knows Final Fantasy VII, of the boat between Junon and Costa del Sol is that little section he showed me, and that was enough to get me to try it, and I fell in love with that game so hard, more than any other game. When I was shown the PS3 tech demo, I'm like, okay, I would really like a game where they just probably gave some voice acting, gave us some updated graphics, but I'm good with that. And then that 2015 moment at Sony's E3 conference is a moment. It's like where were you when moments that you experience, like that unbelievable thing, that one attainable, always out of your reach goal that you always want, and that's actually going to happen. And so granted, I feel like I've been more patient than most fans over the last several years, because since that announcement I've been fine just waiting. And so knowing that I'm sitting here today as of recording just a little less than 2 weeks from the release of the remake of my favorite game of all time, and how impactful that game is to me and what that game represents, both in terms of the game itself and, of course, actual real-world contributions it's made to my life. It is something that not just Final Fantasy VII, but for any game to anyone in general, it is my sincerest hope that there is at least one game that every single person out there has that 7 has given to me in terms of just the sheer joy and happiness, and like the ability to go on and ramble on for hours and days and weeks on end about the game with anyone who will listen. But Final Fantasy VII is probably it is one of not in terms of this season, but it is one of the greatest games of all time, regardless of any metric that you can think of. Because as Scott eloquently just put it just a moment ago, for a game that came out in 1997, the fact we're sitting here in the year 2020, and the fact that game holds up today as fantastically as it does across so many different aspects of the game, from playing the game to taking in the story to even outside of the game itself and its fandom, to just geek and share about our favorite characters or moments or environments or the absolute world-class top tier. I refuse to hear any other arguments against the number one rated soundtrack that is out there in games. Like that's a game that hits everything so well on such a high level that Final Fantasy VII is it's a must play. Like it is a must play. It is a phenomenal game, and I cannot recommend it enough to anybody that will listen to me go on and on about it. But Final Fantasy VII, as much as I would have loved to see you be number one and retired from future seasons, hopefully someone else on a future season will probably do better than I will, and I bid you lovingly adieu.
Yeah, that's definitely a Final Fantasy will live on to be discussed in more seasons of this show, whereas Persona 5 will be retired here in season 2. My last little
Persona 5 Royal, baby.
I suppose that is a. Yeah, now, dang it! Now I'm gonna have to come up with like, oh, does that count as its own game versus?
It's got like
Persona,
30 plus hours. They're brand new.
Yeah, let's take season 3 by storm. Woo!
Yeah, baby.
I think
Did it change the rule of Persona 4 last season? Like Persona 4 Golden still counted as Persona 4?
I believe so. I don't recall though at this point, or if that got discussed when we were talking. Because like when we talked about Persona, we talked about like, hey, yeah, Persona will take out all of the like Persona Qs and the Dancing All Nights and all that stuff, versus Shin Megami Tensei would still be its own stuff, I think is where we were landing. So yeah, Persona, I would say Persona 4, I mean, but at the same time, like we just talked about Pokemon Heart Gold, which I would count as a different game than Pokemon Gold, even though they share so many of the same features. Anyway, But my last little parting words on Final Fantasy VII that I think I've talked about in the past. I don't remember if I talked about it on this show, but 7 in particular was the first PlayStation game I ever played. I played it multiple times at multiple other locations before we ever had a PlayStation in my house. I remember playing all the way up through the end of Disc 1 at my best friend's house growing up. Like we did basically a sleepover where we just kind of like played through that whole game that I knew I was going to have to play through again because I was not taking his memory card or anything like that. And then I would go to like church retreats and stuff, and my youth pastor at the time had a PlayStation and he had Final Fantasy VII, and I remember like everybody else hanging out at the pool outside and me staying in and playing outside of the Gold Saucer. Like I vividly remember like fighting the like the Joker Jester characters, boss or enemies that you fight outside in the fields outside the Gold Saucer, like playing that and just doing that for like an hour and grinding up his characters basically, because I just loved that game so much and had a great time with it. So Final Fantasy VII here, locking it in at number 2, doom doom doom, which means Persona 5, our number 1 game.
Okay,
Congratulations,
real quick, though.
Aaron. Yes.
What
yes,
if
Zyger.
I used my veto and we put Bubble Bobble at number 1?
I
outta
concur.
here.
That's two. That's two.
That's not how the veto works.
But what if it could be?
You make the rules,
Maybe.
Trevor. We can make it that way.
I do make the rules. I'm not making that rule. We're not throwing that curveball in here at the end, because I imagine Persona 5 suddenly being shot back to 19. Brandon would break everything if
No,
Bubble
see,
Bobble
I would
is
just
what
say
beats
we shift
Final
everything
Fantasy VII.
up one.
Oh, so you're trying to make multiple rules then? No. So Persona 5 taking the top spot. I will kind of throw it around the table for everybody, save Brandon, of course, to kind of shout out why Persona 5 is such a champion piece. And since Scott and Aaron, and you've already talked a little bit about it, I'll throw it to you, Zyger. Why is Persona 5 such a staple on this list for you?
I was actually thinking about this when Brandon was talking about what he loved about Final Fantasy VII being the story, and a lot of what Brandon was saying about Final Fantasy VII, I felt could also be applied to Persona 5, minus the environmental stuff. But like the friendships that are created in Persona 5, the story elements that revolve around that, I feel is so powerful. And like unlike Final Fantasy VII, where from the get-go, you know you're Avalanche, you're an organization trying to stop this much bigger organization. Persona 5, it starts off like, hey, you're just a bunch of kids, and your gym teacher is a sexual predator. You just want to stop him, protect your friends. But then it slowly evolves into this thing where you're trying to take down major corporations and eventually fall into a situation where, hey, you guys are the only ones who are aware of what's going on, and if you don't do it, no one else will. Let's go save the world and shit. And it's done so masterfully well. As far as like the overall story for Persona 5, I do agree with Trevor. At the end of the Persona 5, it does become the final dungeon. When you go into it, you think it's the final dungeon. You find out that dungeon's super long, and it only gets longer. So like the final bit of Persona 5, I do feel is a bit long, but the end game, everything about it, fusing personas, the relationships, building the story, everything about it is done so well that I personally put Persona 5, I think, as my number 2 game, but I am so happy that it's number 1 because it is such a good game. It deserves all the praise and love that it's been getting throughout this season and anywhere else online. Great game. Can't wait for Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah, but
Great. Scott, any final Persona 5 words from you?
play this game. If you like turn-based RPGs, play this game. Well, play Royal, but it's a game. It's a really good game. Just play this game. I said a lot of my piece during my argument and why I put this above Final Fantasy VII. So
Yep. And then Aaron, any final words, as this was your game, your round 2 pick
Yeah,
here at the top of the list?
I'll say one thing, and I understand I'm splitting hairs here between a 20-year-old PlayStation 1 game and a PlayStation 3 and 4 game. I've never played a better paced turn-based RPG in my life. Like, I've never played a turn-based RPG where fights can go by so quick, because everything is laid out to your face buttons. There aren't a lot of menus for you to go hunting through, and it all takes, like, it's such... They knew what they were doing with the controller to make it so, like, succinct and well-paced in pretty much any fight. That, like, I think that adds to to my enjoyment of the game, because encounters don't feel like a chore. Like, running into an enemy, I don't feel like I'm like, oh god, here's another enemy. You know, this will take me 2 seconds as I do exactly what I need to do to get that all-out attack, to get that enemy gone, and the whole encounter's done in, like, maybe 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. It's I play a lot of turn-based RPGs, and it's easily the one that is the most enjoyable when it comes to your actual combat encounters. But I've said all my other points about the story and the world and your characters and all that
I think
stuff.
On that note, one of the things I would highlight about both these games, both Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 7, that Brandon touched on a little bit, but that you've kind of really made me want to bring to the forefront, is that whether it's 30 to 50 to however many hours I've put into Final Fantasy 7 versus the 200 plus hours I put into Persona 5 in multiple playthroughs, the music in both those games, which can be incredibly repetitive as you're hearing the same battle themes over and over and over again, never got boring, never gets tiring. It's always fun and engaging music all throughout. So I think both of these are phenomenal soundtracks throughout that could very easily in the types of games that they are wear on you in a way that, like, Heart Gold, for example, like, I'm so tired of the Pokemon themes at this point. And admittedly, like, that's a little apples to oranges, because, like, Pokemon has had some of the same themes for all of their games. And so I've just had to experience so many more of those. But in these two games in particular, something that could really be a turnoff 100 hours into a game, the fact that I was still enjoying the music through a second playthrough of Persona 5, I think really is a testament to the composers of both the respective works there. So one last little shout out to that. So I will lock in Persona 5 here as our number one game of Season 2.
Congratulations.
Wait, real quick though, who is best girl?
Oh, I'm a Makoto fan.
As am I.
An's best girl.
But also Futaba. But also all of them.
All of them are
Also,
good.
also
Was it-
Ryuji. Let me be gay for Ryuji, please. Persona. Like, we are
Scott, was it you?
such a cute
I feel like I saw
couple.
somebody,
Come on.
maybe it was Barrett, talking about how Futaba is best girl, but not to romance. And that's a sentiment I think I can get behind.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't say it, but I can definitely get behind that. If Futaba was a few years older, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah. And not your, like, sister
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. That's the big thing
Yeah.
for me. I love Futaba, but I see her more as a sister.
So real quick before we wrap up the episode and the season, I want to give everybody one last chance, if it hasn't already been, like, celebrated or something here, to shout out, like, your personal number one. So, like, Brandon, obviously your personal number one here was Final Fantasy 7, and was Persona 5 your number one, Aaron?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay. Scott, what was your number one? Your personal number one?
My personal number one was Final Fantasy VII, but then after I thought about it more, I decided to choose Persona for this. So
Yeah. You betrayed Brandon, is what you're saying. Okay.
I'm used to
Nice.
it. I already went through that 5 weeks ago. It's fine.
Yeah. And Zyger, what was your personal number one?
Person number one is Minecraft, because it's just Legos,
Right.
and you can just do anything in that game, both on, like,
Yeah.
console and especially more on PC with all the mods that you can do in that game. Minecraft is a game that will last forever. It will outlive everything on this list. That is just facts.
I mean that, yeah. I don't think I would refute that, actually. I think Minecraft.
Maybe
will,
GTA 5. Maybe.
I mean, well, no, because they'll come out with a new GTA, and GTA 6 will
Okay,
like,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
take on. Whereas, like, Minecraft 2 has been like long like theorized, but I don't know if they'll ever actually do a Minecraft
Yeah,
2.
they will never do Minecraft 2. People who say Minecraft 2 is a thing don't understand what Minecraft is.
Yeah, or Minecraft 2 wouldn't have the cultural resonance, societal resonance as Minecraft did, whereas GTA has just consistently kind of gone bigger and bigger
Yeah.
with each of their games. So like I can see a GTA 6 becoming the new best-selling game of all time over GTA 5, whereas I don't think a Minecraft 2 would capture the zeitgeist in the same way as Minecraft 1 has, and Minecraft 1 will. As we touched on in when that got ranked, it will have stuff like the uncensored library out there. People just using it in incredibly innovative and ingenuitive ways. So yes, celebration and shout out for Minecraft as well. But yeah, so that is going to do it for this episode. So a recap there of I won't go through the full ranking of 20, but you can see it on the I don't know. It'll be
Screen?
posted eventually on the website and stuff. I'm saying, well, like if you are the listener of the episode, yeah. If you're watching it on YouTube, it'll be you can see the whole thing. But since I already ran through the top 15 earlier in the episode, just rounding out here. Number 5, Kingdom Hearts for the PlayStation 2. Number 4, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Number 3, Pokemon Heart Gold for the Nintendo DS. Number 2, Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1. And number 1 game of all time for Season 2, Persona 5 for the PlayStation 3. So, very solid list, everybody. I love the eclectic nature of some of the choices. Scott, in particular,
You're welcome.
Celebrating games that would not otherwise get a spotlight in a top 20 games list. But then also, I think the last couple weeks in particular have been fun conversation, especially last week, as like people just kept sacrificing their games to move some of these other ones up the list. So, good shout, everybody. Great job.
We got 19
here
new games.
on season 2. Yeah, and I love that. I remember when God of War 2018 was made our like number 1 game for season 1. Logan was like, I don't know how I feel about like our number 1 game being a game that is a year and a half old or whatever. And I was like, so I was checking the date on Persona 5 and came stateside in 2017. So yes, so far the 2 retired games are both from the last few years. So, yay, old game is old instead of new game is new. Cool. So that's going to do it for this season. Thank you, everybody, because it has been a very fun season, especially as the world falls apart around us, collaborating with all of you, and doing this for the last 9-10 weeks. So, that is going to do it for this season of That Ultimate Video Game List Show. Before we kind of make the final round of shoutouts and everything, if you want to be a part of season 3, you can go to thatnerdysite.com/VGListGuest and fill out the form there. As I said last week's episode, we're going to take some time off in between seasons so I can work with Logan to try and get our video game news podcast up and running. So I don't know when we'll be back with season 3 yet, but I will be taking kind of submissions for that for the next few weeks, and then I'll put together the season 3 panel here. So hopefully we'll be back here in the next couple months with season 3 of the show. But for season 2, it has been a blast. You can follow our panel. You can follow Scott at SolidSnake120. Anything you want to give some love and shout out to, Scott?
Just a huge thank you, Trevor, to letting me be a part of this fantastic show. This has been a great time. Aaron, Zyger, Brandon, it's been an absolute blast and pleasure to talk and debate you guys and just nerd out for a number of weekends. So that's been very fun. In terms of my stuff, you can check out RPG University on all your podcast services, the RPG-focused podcast that I host with a new guest each week. And coming up next week, the week after this podcast goes live, we have a special Final Fantasy VII episode that you can all come and listen to. We got 9 guests. There's 9 of us on this podcast, and it actually went really well. Plus, we have a surprise caller or a surprise message from someone in the episode as well. So look forward to that. And you can check out my stuff on irrationalpassions.com and, excuse me, dualshockers.com.
And you guys haven't done a Persona 5 episode of
No.
RPG University, right?
I am currently planning it. I want to do kind of a smaller, like a panel episode as well, with some people after they beat Royal. So
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, you can follow Brandon at GamesGan. Any last words and final shout-outs from you, Brandon?
Yeah, I'll split it into 2 parts. First, to kind of echo what Scott said. So, to my fellow panelists here, thank you, gentlemen. This has been quite a fun ride to go through. I've been looking forward to doing these each and every week, and the very actual fact of that I would be recording with you guys has actually got me through a couple of hard weeks. So I do appreciate providing a fun little atmosphere for me to kind of look forward to, have fun. And to you, Trevor, I thank you so much, sir, for the privilege of being a part of this. I do would like to campaign and champion to be on a future season. Until such time, I will continue to be a fan and to support and listen and watch along as I did for season 1. So I thank you for that. And in terms of final shout outs, normally as I have done over the past few weeks, just groups of different people, but for this one I think it would be best and prudent if I go ahead and repeat not only Scott's, but also to echo everyone else here on the panel. So to all those out there listening, kind of take it away from everybody else right here. If you are not, for whatever bizarre reason, following That Nerdy Site, Irrational Passions, Dual Shockers, MyXboxandMe.com, and the Scootcast, what is wrong with you? But I do echo, and I do wish that you all go support these people. They are all fun, especially Zyger, who can be traitorous, but that's okay. But again, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, fellow panelists, and Trevor, for this fun time. I really did enjoy it. We'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. You can follow Zyger at Zyger1337. Any final parting words for you, Zyger?
I was going to say how I love everyone here. It's been great podcasting with you guys for the past, 9 weeks that we've been doing this, right?
9, 10, because we took a week off for PAX. So
right.
10 weeks.
Yeah. Trevor, thank you for having me on. Aaron, Scott, Brandon, thank you for being great. But at the same time, I didn't betray a single one of you. I don't know what you're talking about. Shenanigans. Shenanigans. It's all libel. It's all the other word that's not written.
Slander.
Slander. Yes. That. All of it.
The villain always thinks they're in the right.
It's not libel because we didn't write anything.
Not yet.
True. He's got a point.
It could be both.
Sure, Zyger. It could be both.
Kirby Air Ride number 1. Let's go.
And then rounding out the panel, you can follow Aaron at Aaron_Mahler. Any final parting words for you, Aaron?
This has been the only reason I wake up at a reasonable hour on the weekends, and I want you guys to know that, because I have a night schedule, and I love every minute of it. It's worth waking up early for me. For context, we're recording this at 3 p.m. It's now 4. Doesn't matter. Thanks to everybody for having me on, Trevor. This has been great. I've loved coming on here and talking to you guys about video games, because I think we all love video games. You can check my stuff out at Skookgang Tweets on Twitter. We just had a podcast. It's out right now with Kinda Cool Greg. We had him on for Scootcast, which was fun. It got into lots of shenanigans. You can also listen to RPG and Chill, my RPG podcast. I think last week we talked about my ever-growing love for Final Fantasy XIV, which is great.
Good game.
And how much I enjoyed the Bravely Default 2 demo.
Nice.
Yeah,
cool.
That's it. That's all I got.
And congratulations, Aaron, for being the winner, so to speak, of the,
of
the season.
We're all the winner. We're all the winner
Persona 5.
with Persona 5 being the number 1 game.
The real winner here is Bubble Bobble. Let's be real.
It is definitely up there.
Exactly. Bubble Bobble has been mentioned in every fucking episode, so that is a win.
Every episode since episode 3, Bubble Bobble. are the 19th best game of all time, Bubble Bobble, the real winner here. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter, and you can follow all of the latest from That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site. Please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, follow us everywhere you can. If you can, support us on Patreon. That'd be great, patreon.com/thatnerdysite. But I totally get these are trying times, and people are having to kind of keep their wallets a little tighter, so no worries if you cannot. Thank you again to this extraordinary panel here on season 2. It has been a blast. I like season 1 was a bit of a gimme for me because it was bringing in everybody else from That Nerdy Site to get to do it, and so this was the first time where I got to really explore what this looked like with a disparate group of people kind of getting together for this, and it met and exceeded all my wildest expectations. So thank you everybody for joining me for this season 2. Season 1 was the pilot season. You guys were like the real go ahead, and you have set a high bar for future seasons. So I look forward to seeing who I can get on and who I can wrangle into this show in the future to do this, play this game with me again. So we will be back at some point in the future for Season 3, but that's going to do it, wrapping up here Season 2 with our number 1 game of all time, Persona 5. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.